Potential drama at the Federal Reserve and potential lower interest rates in September. Is that a green light to the multifamily market? Well, we're going to be talking about that and a lot more. But more important than that, we've got a special guest co-host for the Gray Report today. Senior Vice President of Property Management, Katrina Greene, is joining me today. It's going to be a great episode. I'm going to strap in, watch the whole thing. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Gray Report. I'm excited. I'm joined co-hosting today on the Gray Report, Katrina Greene, Senior Vice President of Property Management at Gray Residential. Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, gosh.
Known by many.
Yes. Yes.
Some.
Yeah, I have been equated to that.
In the past.
I like to think in a
force of
positive
nature,
way.
As some
Thank you.
have described you. How's it going, Katrina?
It's
How's your
going
week?
great. I'm excited to be here. I think this is our first official crossover episode because I have the complex, and we, certainly are talking about. It's a different topic in the same business, so this is just going to be fun because it's a nice blend today.
Yeah,
it's
like where two worlds collide. And so Katrina hosts her own podcast called The Complex that focuses more on operations, property management. So definitely check that out. We posted on the Gray Capital YouTube channel also. So if you subscribe to the Gray Capital YouTube channel, which if you don't do that already, might as well do that right now. But then you can go on wherever you get your podcasts and also subscribe to the Complex. And so often in like multifamily, like media and podcasts, is like niche as it is, so much of it is just on the investment side because people are trying to raise money and they're talking about deals, and that's great. That's an important component to it. The industry wouldn't exist without that side of it. But often it misses the actual like business of the real business. Yeah. And so that's what you do on the Complex and every single day in your life.
in real life, for sure.
And so it's just awesome to have you on once again.
Thank you.
Wanted to get through first. We're going to do a couple news reports, kind of like we usually do on the Gray Report, talking about the Federal Reserve. We're going to talk about cap rates. We're going to talk about kind of this slow leasing season that we've experienced from our perspective, but it's also like a national perspective also. But before we do, I do just have to say, if you are a accredited investor and you haven't checked out Gray Capital's latest multifamily investment offering, Flats at Stones Crossing, go check it out. Go to graycapitalllc.com. There's a button below. You can click that link, sign up to get the deck, schedule a meeting with the team. We're really excited about it. We're going to be closing just in a couple weeks now. There's not that much equity remaining. There's only a few spots. But if you schedule a meeting now, we might be able to secure a spot for you. And even if it's not this deal, we'd love to have a conversation during a live deal to see if just working with Gray Capital is a good fit. But if not, that's all great too. Just ignore it and enjoy the podcast. Okay, let's jump into this first article.
Yeah.
Jerome Powell. J. Powell. We have our own J. Powell.
We do have our own J. Powell.
We have our own J.
Funny
Powell.
every time we say. I think it's funny every time we say it, but yeah.
I do too. But Jerome Powell, he was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming last week on Friday. He was giving a speech, highly anticipated to kind of indicate the pivot for the Federal Reserve. There's been this push and pull where certainly like the Trump administration, a lot of the market is saying, hey, look, we've got a slowing economy. You need to lower interest rates to kind of keep the economy boosted up. Certainly apartment owners would appreciate that if you're trying to refinance, you're trying to buy a deal because interest rates are so high.
Yeah.
If you're just an average, American looking to buy a house, you also really like that idea because it's really hard to buy a house right now. The down payments are really, really expensive. So there's a lot of people that like this idea, but the concern is if you lower interest rates too soon, then do we cause more inflation? Because the other thing we've been dealing with is just rising costs.
Yeah.
Everyone's been dealing with that from from eggs to the materials, but then in our world, we deal with it every single day.
Every day, all of our materials, and then labor cost. As in the same somewhat relationship to that, and so it doesn't slow down, and it impacts us at every turn.
Every single
angle.
Turn. And so, monetary policy, like a lot of things in life, like there's two sides of the coin. And so you make it easier to finance, you make it cheaper, the debt cheaper. Do you make everything else more expensive? And that's the concern. And, we were also talking about, if rates are lower, potentially you're going to see more people actually being able to buy homes. Mm-hmm. And right now there's this huge gap between the cost to buy a home versus to rent. I mean, it's never been, technically, comparing to buy a home, it's never been cheaper to rent, which it doesn't seem cheap to rent either if you're a resident.
Certainly not.
But it is cheaper relative than buying a home. We talked about this just before we started. Is that a concern? As rates come down, again, Jay and I can go around and be like, hey, we're going to buy another deal, Katrina.
Yeah.
But how much concern for you is it's going to hit us operationally from maybe see some labor costs rise, materials continuing to rise?
Yeah.
And then is it competition on the single family home side?
Yeah, definitely. There's concern, and it's not like it's going to change our renewal, our retention, and it's not going to take it from, where we maybe we're retaining 55%, now we're only retaining 40%. Like it's not that kind of a gap, mm-hmm. But if we're budgeting, and have been reaching, actually one community, June and July, we were 68% retention. And, as we're talking about on a large scale, what those rent to income ratios are looking like, and then housing availability, especially in a market where there are, attainable housing choices, that's really where I see it impacting us is just, maybe 5, 6, 7% on the retention, based on what we planned. And then obviously that goes into the turn. So I don't think it's a mass exodus. I've been in the business a long time and I can remember moments, maybe 06 or so when it was just everybody coming in, giving notice, buying house, mm-hmm. buying house. I don't expect that with this, perceived or potential small change in September.
Was that in 2006? Just because I don't think we've talked about this. And I wasn't in the industry in 2000. Well, I was trying to flip a house in 2006.
Okay.
And I remember the strategy was because my buddy in high school's dad was teaching us how to do it. And the plan was, anyone can get a mortgage to buy these homes. So we just have to fix up this cheap house and just find somebody off the street. They'll be able to buy it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that wasn't true, and we couldn't find anybody to buy it.
Yeah.
And we had to turn it into a rental.
Yeah.
But so you remember back, so in 2000, what was that like?
Yeah, I was there.
Literally everyone was just saying, hey, I'm going and buying a house because...
Yes, it was incredibly easy, very little red tape. We had people that were, consistently late on their rent that could get a mortgage easier than they could get an apartment, truly at the time, because that was back when you were doing these paper verifications and, noting and, reporting what people's rent history was like. And I got my real estate license while I was in the apartment industry because I wanted to understand it. Now, turns out, they don't really teach you much about lending. And sort of, traditional real estate courses. I'm not saying you don't learn anything, but, I sought other sources and, there were so many new communities being built, tiny houses, tiny lots, shake your neighbor's hand out their window and your window, but it was a house. It was the American dream. It was, I need to get out of this apartment and, provide. And so, and they were geographically right next door to my apartment community. So
they could just walk right across. They see it right there.
The model home every day.
Yeah.
And so, just notice after notice after notice. And we understood enough about the EMI loans and, the buy down options and what that was going to look like and the tax assessments that no one understood. So we actually held a class in our clubhouse. At some point I just said, I know this sounds crazy, but let me have a class on home buying.
Yeah.
Thinking that there would be some, just real reflection in that moment about, is my family ready? Is this the right choice? Didn't have that impact on any of them. Had a great impact on me. The speaker came from HUD, spoke about how she foreclosed on her first home, and I was in it long enough to see those foreclosures come back. I was in it long enough for us to change our policies on our screening to allow foreclosures into our apartment communities because of what happened. So there was I would say absolutely a mass exodus at that point.
Now, I guess 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Did it start coming back? But I mean, there was definitely negative rent growth, kind of that 2007 through middle of 2009 maybe, and then it started coming back, and we had some kind of above trend growth for a couple of years after that, or at least for I think 2 years after that. Did you feel that? Did all of a sudden it was all these people who bought a home are now looking to rent an apartment, or was it just it's a recession and everybody's not having a good time? And
I remembered some of it, but whole truth, I sold real estate at that point. So
moving on to
I did, and made some really strategic partnerships and actually connected people with, these Epcon community like condos. And so, my daughter was little. I already had my license. I left multifamily just for a short time.
Yeah.
So
that's when you were trying to sell the condos at Solana?
Look, kind of, yeah. It's the strangest, like, full circle moment. But yeah, I was the part-time salesperson at Renaissance Bay that became Solana. That is now.
Do we now own and manage?
Interesting.
Apartments.
Yeah. So, but I do definitely remember the demand coming back, and I remember that not all operators did modify their policies. So there were some operators that wouldn't accept a foreclosure. And, even on bankruptcy, it got a little bit tricky because that's how some people were trying to salvage the rest of their lives as it related, to credit. And they came back just horribly broken. Some of them I predicted for sure. I mean, I always worked in a small town. And so when you do that, I still see people that I've evicted at Walmart, and see people that I was very close to. So, it's just like that. But I saw them come back pretty broken after they went out, bought a house, shouldn't have been given a mortgage, truly, all things considered.
Yeah.
And so the demand was there, and maybe it's been doing really well since then. And I think that's a community that you have some ownership in.
Yeah.
So you can picture it.
So
small world.
One thing that's interesting, we were talking about, interest rates are high, maybe they're going to come down, but we're still seeing people buying homes. We're talking about like when we do like move out surveys of our residents, there's not just from like our A-class communities, but from some of our more like affordable lower A affordable communities. People are at least telling us they're going out and buying a home. Is that surprising sometimes when folks from like a Class C, Class B asset want to buy a house?
A little bit, but if if you're on whatever, realtor.com, homes.com, any of those regularly, as many of us are, just to try to understand our pricing as it relates to the single family rental market. And some of those sites you can see, for sale or for rent, there are affordable options out there. They may not be anyone's dream home.
Yeah.
And they may not be, in a certain neighborhood or anything like that, but it is still, the kind of living that some people absolutely prefer and rather maybe are more well suited for. So, yeah, it surprises me a little bit that, when we think about all the challenges that we have in that Class C.
Well, I talk to people all the time that are, more kind of, middle 20s, young professionals, but who have careers who are still of the mindset of like, I can't buy a home. Like, I don't know when I could. Maybe I want to at some point, but it's just right now it's not realistic. But then I turn around and see people who, are paying, $1,000, $1,200, a month. It seems to be kind of stretching their budget, but then saying, I'm going to go out here and buy a home.
I'm going
to do it.
Yeah.
Which, to props to them to be able to, to save up and to figure it out, to make a plan. And it reminds us, a lot of people are, choosing to rent, not just because it's their only option or they're choosing to rent somewhere that isn't as, luxurious and fancy. A lot of people are thinking about their financial future and seeing as a way to save money for a period of time to then, up level their life in the future.
Yeah.
And so it's a good reminder, I think, like when we were talking about, some of our communities that really surprised us. It's a reminder not to, kind of stereotype, one community or the other or the people that live there.
Yeah.
And that it's pretty diverse and people have, really, interesting lives and got their own stories and can do good things.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, we need just a human interest, podcast, if you will,
oh my gosh.
Bring some, residents, certainly employees, just like the life story thing. And there's like a psychological benefit to some of that too, because of the disconnect, because of how disconnected everybody is. Truly.
It really seems like that at some point. All right. Well, next piece, besides the Federal Reserve, and this ties in, because if interest rates are coming down, there's always this conversation that's ongoing about interest rates and cap rates and, how related and correlated they are. And I don't think anyone would say that there's a one-to-one correlation in relation of like if interest rates go down, then cap rates have to go down.
Yeah. But
more of kind of a direction of travel of like, all right, if interest rates are really rising up, it is the cost to borrow.
Yeah.
So it's the biggest, cost in source of finance when you're buying one of these deals. Higher it is to borrow, the less money you can pay. So it's going to at some point impact pricing, unless there's just so much momentum in thinking that prices will continue to rise for other reasons in the future. Like we're going to see some rent growth. We're going to see some sort of net operating income growth.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's been surprising when interest rates have been as high as they have been, especially kind of the longer term treasuries, that cap rates haven't expanded any further than they have. I mean, they certainly expanded. I mean, they went from, being in the mid kind of 4% range to, now they're like in like 5.5, maybe up to 6. But people thought that they would be kind of 6 to 6.5 based on just that like typical spread between like a 10-year treasury yield and cap rates.
Yeah.
CBRE, our friends over at CBRE, put out a survey of cap rates. And cap rates are controversial because there's a lot of different ways to, like slice it up, and whether you want to use, T12 financials, T3 financials,
right.
T1 income over T12 expenses.
Yeah, creative.
A lot of creativity and a lot of like different like opinions. And it's like, you think it would just be more objective, but that's not always the case. So they do a survey, and we've talked about surveys a lot on the Gray Report recently, a lot related to like the BLS surveys, related to employment or like the labor statistics. This is another survey, but it's a private survey, and they are it's using 3,600 cap rate estimates across more than 50 geographic markets, done by over 200 CBRE real estate professionals. It's completed during the first half of 2025. What's interesting about all that is it's like, all right, these guys should know. People should know. They should, they're pretty close to it. At the same time, and we talk about this a lot of, they probably have a bias. They probably want to sell real estate because they work for a commercial real estate brokerage shop.
Yeah.
You'd think that they'd want the liquidity to be in the market. They want to do deals.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to cast too much shade, but at the same time, they have to maintain their credibility. So they can't just put BS out there. Like it has to be somewhat real. The conclusion of the survey is that, cap rates are flat and somewhat declining. Now, this is looking at all property types, not just multifamily. This is office and industrial and retail, all that stuff. So even including office, cap rates, essentially, they bottomed out at about 5.5%, kind of during kind of peak ZIRP 2021 era, and inched up to basically 7%, and have come down slightly over the last several years, which again, in an environment where interest rates went up considerably more than that, it's a relatively tight range. You'd think that would indicate that there's some pent-up demand, or at least investors thinking things are going to get better.
Yeah.
One interesting piece, and this is more towards the argument that cap rates have really stabilized, is that in 2024, the second half of 2024, there was a large percentage of individuals who were expecting cap rates to decrease like over the next half. So this, I think that green color there, I'm colorblind.
Oh, it is bright green.
It is. Well, so what's the middle one? What's the middle one?
Aqua.
Aqua. Okay, sorry. So the aqua color is showing percent expecting to decrease, which is pretty the plurality, more than 50%.
Yeah.
And then, but for 2025, it's a much higher percentage of people expecting no change. Very small percentage of people are expecting cap rates to increase. Still, a good maybe 20% of individuals think there might be a continual decrease. But there's somewhat consensus here of, hey, cap rates are going to kind of stick where they are. Now, part of this, I wonder, is if you think back to the second half of 2024, there were a lot of expectations that interest rates were going to be dropped at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this year, there was like expectations for up to 5 interest rate, drops throughout the year. We've had 0.
Yeah.
And now maybe we're going to go in September.
Yeah.
So part of me wonders if this view is it's almost, let me put it this way. If the survey was taken today, I'm curious in the first half of 2025, if you wouldn't get more individuals saying they would expect a decrease, given the Jackson Hole speech,
right,
and the fact that rates there's an 85% chance, at least today, that there will be a decrease of the Fed funds rate in September. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting just seeing the difference, and it's almost like the uncertainty that tariffs and just general economic uncertainty kind of put the kibosh on any kind of movement. at least for the first half of the year. So again, we look at kind of the spread of stabilized cap rate estimates versus, this is comparing the two. And again, so it looks like really it's pointing to a lot more stabilization. Really the only outlier has been in office. That some of the respondents really think there's going to be an expansion in the office cap rates, which I don't think the end of the story has been written on the office market. A lot of people are still trying to figure out what to do with all that B-class office. And honestly, when I was looking at these cap rate figures, like the individual markets, it's at some point you start to get interested in buying office. I don't really like office. There's nothing really, I don't know a whole lot about office, but when some of these markets, there's like a 10, 11, 12% cap rate. If you could buy the office building with the expectation that more people move out and it still makes money, and you can only have like one or two tenants that are going to stick. All right. Well, if you can secure some really nice, locations and real estate, maybe it's not a bad play. And, we were talking yesterday of there's a little bit of a push to return to the office, and not everybody wants to work remote. And like this idea that like the office is dead, like that's not going to be the case.
No.
Right?
No. I had a theory a long time ago. I think I even said it out loud on something that was recorded that, so, my daughter's 19 and, she glamorizes the office. Like, this is a destination. It's so cool here. Look where my mom works, as a vibe.
We've got a cool office.
Well, we have a really cool office. I mean, I do think that we're extremely, we're on the extreme sense of that. I've worked in another office before that was
not as cool.
Nothing like it. Felt a little more funeral home-ish, but also I did great work there, so I didn't care. But I think for her, is that going to be the new perk once the norms are, sort of remote? And actually in the car on the way here this morning, I thought, in our software, we do have the ability to add custom fields. One of our custom fields should indicate, hybrid, remote.
Oh, you mean,
we
like
should
a
start
resident
collecting
app.
our own data
100%.
During the application process, if for no other reason than to understand the amenity spaces better, the amenity needs. We converted 2 storage rooms, at one of our communities into these hybrid workspaces. Well, the power went out in one of them, and that's how fast you understand if someone cares.
Yeah, seriously.
They do.
They cared. They couldn't use
Turns out someone cared. So, on the right track, but would really like to have a data-driven decision on that. But then, as it relates to just our own body of work in humans, there's more data that we could be collecting to understand office better. So definitely I'm like, I need to add that as a custom field and start to understand how many people are hybrid, remote, or full-time in office. If they'll share it with us, which they do. They will.
I mean, and it's a a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's important, viewing our communities and the amenities that we are going to provide residents from a perspective of how it used to be is everyone went to work during the day. Kids would go to school.
Yes,
everyone else would go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, a good way to do some initial due diligence on a property was driving around the parking lot during the day and seeing who was at work and who wasn't. And if the parking lot was full, you're like, these people don't have jobs. But now you drive through a parking lot and you're like,
they work from home.
These are people who are hard at work. And you've got your Volkswagen or BMW. You must be doing a pretty good job, working remotely.
And that's the other place we shouldn't make suppositions about product, because there are plenty of people in Evansville, Indiana at River Club that work from home. So it's
not just Class A.
It isn't just
100%.
Class A. It isn't just Class A.
Yeah, no, so true.
Yeah.
But then we have to think about what kind of amenities then we need to offer those residents, because it's all of a sudden you've got people who want to take a stroll around the community during the day, or are just going to be around during the day. I mean, and again, that's just a different dynamic than everyone going off to work. And it's counterintuitive, and we're going to talk about this later also, because there's trends of limited staff resources, and so there's a reaction to, let's have people at the site less. Maybe we're going to have the clubhouse closed down during the day, or like limited, only a couple of days a week, or limited office hours. But in thinking that everyone's going to want to interact digitally, which a lot of people, maybe most do, but all of a sudden at the same time you have more people on site that probably want to walk into the office and see how things
Yes.
are going and,
Yeah.
get the free coffee out of the coffee machine or just
we
chat.
might be the only human they see all week.
Yeah. Real in person.
And there's like an incredible starvation for just that moment, the face-to-face, not always like where it's like required, at least as it relates to like the sales function or the renewal function, but like where it's required for just like sanity and mental health, which that's a whole, it's a whole nother thing. And I've been on like a deep research, deep research. I think I'm an anthropologist now. I don't know.
Well, we've got a lot of people to study.
Yeah.
In our communities.
We do. We have an incredible amount of people to study. But yeah, the amenity, that the match with what they, need, what they will use, what will enhance their world, just has to be carefully and thoughtfully done. And we're an acquisition, so we're always trying to retrofit something because certainly no one thought about that or didn't think about it in the way that they ever could have imagined, when the architect started that. Depending on what year it is and, what we've bought. And,
yeah. Because, it's years from, design plans to implementation. I mean, you were talking yesterday about how, there's a property on the south side that you helped name some of the units.
I did.
And it's just now being fully stabilized.
Yeah.
But, you named those units at your, previous employer, years ago.
Yeah.
And pre-pandemic or just before, during?
Ish. Yeah, it was after, but not long after.
But we still didn't know, okay, we need to design this for, work from home.
Right, yeah.
What would you do if you were back or doing one again, today? What are some of those activities? What are some of those features, amenities that we need to be thinking about? Not that you could afford to do all of them, but what are some of the things that might move the needle these days?
I think that we've always had, some floor plans that had some semblance of like a desk space, counter space with the right, power. Like that's the other thing. Like I've been in communities before where there's like actually like possibly an extension in their kitchen, maybe where there's this just beautiful granite slab and then there's no power.
Yeah. How do you do work here?
No, yeah, right. You're like, that was a great idea. What do I do? What are we supposed to do with this? I also it's really more architecture. It's like being thoughtful about what's behind someone or, maybe no one wants to hear this, but maybe it's about at the construction point and nobody would ever actually do this, but thinking truly about what it's like to border a wall with another, human. And what that's like when you've got a couple of them home or more of them home during the day, like parking, the metrics of, space per unit. I mean, I definitely remember sort of like day one COVID, the initial pain was that everyone was on the same schedule. They were all home and they'd never all been home before. And their complaints about noise, parking, bird feeders, just anything that was like a nuisance, like,
well,
and
people
it's like,
didn't have anything else to do with that,
truly had nothing else to do. And that was really kind of a nightmare. And so sometimes, and I'll joke about it and I'll be like, what's the parking space per unit? Like, what have we done? Because, it's, and people are very vocal about their parking, very vocal.
Well, yeah, it's not a personal thing, but it really seems like it. People can feel it to everyone. I try not to feel entitled about these things, but sometimes I'm like, I often park there. Yeah. And I at least want to be in like this area of proximity. And honestly, it was more, it's not even where we park now. It's like when we used to park back in the further lot.
Yes.
Like if those back spots.
Like where we backed in.
Yeah. If I couldn't get one of the backed in spots, even if it was like the furthest away.
Yeah.
I couldn't get one of those spots. I was like, oh man. I knew it's not mine, but it's like I didn't get there early
They're
enough.
all, our residents are it's no different than like, this is my church pew. This is my parking spot. These are, these are mine, but they're not mine, but everyone knows they're mine. So some protective instincts of what you think is yours.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Comes into play, but those are the things I would definitely consider. Or you would stop having random storage closets in all these different places, and you would actually understand that it could be an amenity space. I mean, it's probably a 6x10 it's probably not even 6x10 at, Echo in Bloomington, but it was usable as an amenity, makes sense, didn't cost that much to furnish it.
And they were just random storage.
They were random storage. They weren't
rooms.
needed. We had a shop, and honestly, sometimes like if you give a maintenance team and an office team, frankly, storage closets, they will find some crap to put in there and forget about it.
They'll get filled up.
And sure.
I mean, we're
funny where we're thrifty and where we're not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, might be able to get some revenue out of those storage closets. It's like, well, we've got to put our promotional materials from 10 years ago when none of us were even here.
Yeah, and some just really awful, like, Easter decorations. And I'm just like, come on, y'all.
We're never going to reuse these.
Yeah, there's other places to make a big impact. Let's not, like, this isn't the place. But, yeah, just very, very thoughtful. Very thoughtful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing I like that, we were talking about yesterday, and you really tried to like, underscore is, like, one of the things we're doing at Flats at Stones Crossing is adding some amenity spaces in to try to kind of replicate that kind of like backyard feel, kind of the patio, and having more than one of them. Because like at the property right now, there's like a grilling area by the pool, but it's like if one family or one group is using that area, there's 292 units. It's like it's done. Like no one else can go grilling today, or at least during that afternoon. Yeah. But by being able to offer some of those benefits of what you might be missing of a single family home experience, which is, on a summer, weekend, you want to go and grill and hang out outside at a patio. And in an apartment, you may have a little patio or a balcony, but it's not the same as an area you can go sit down and grill. I do think that's just psychologically, like we need to head there. And we also need to make sure that it's a reservable space. The fact that the grills are in these big common areas, it's really not comfortable to be like, okay, let me take my plate of raw meat, let me drive it in the car, maybe in some Tupperware. I don't even actually know. I've never done that. And we should probably do that, just for perspective. Like one of us should simulate what that situation looks like. And so that's why the idea for, Stones and all of our software allows it. People want to have predictability. They want to know that they're going to be in a comfortable environment. They want to know that they don't have to share the space, not because they're territorial and they can't be nice, but because if they've invited someone over, they want to have whatever conversation they want to have. They want to laugh. Fight over the space with someone else, with their neighbor.
So some privacy and able to reserve it. And, we haven't like nailed it down specifically, but there's a lot of great ideas out there about not a theme in a hokey way, but does one have the cool pizza oven? Does one have, something that's more loungy? And then, like where they have some distinction in what the intended activity is. And then the resident can just say, oh, I'm going to, on Saturday afternoon, even if they just want to read a book out there and know it's theirs. It's part of the package.
I'm just thinking through the planning of, there's one grill space or even two grill spaces, but I don't know if we can actually use it or if it's going to be available. And I have to go to the grocery store, get all my stuff, invite my friends, and then you walk down and they're all used.
Yeah, there's no confidence in that.
No, it leads you to not using the amenity in the space. And sometimes I think we walk around our communities or we talk to our site teams and we ask, how often is this getting used? And it's like, occasionally, every once in a while. But I bet it would be used a lot more if people could have confidence that it would be theirs to use.
Yeah,
so I think
a lot of anxiety out there. So like whatever we can do to reduce that. And obviously in a perfect world, we'd like to bring people together. Like we would love, if it's a Love is Blind reunion viewing party, we should be doing that. Yeah. We should be doing that. I think, that not that this is for today, but just thinking through like social events and, sort of the way that I don't want to say they're an afterthought. There's a budget for them. We want to do them. We believe they're for retention. I believe they're for mental health. And in addition to retention and like just really recognizing like the absolute importance of it, but it doesn't always have to be some giant pool party. Like it can be pretty basic, pretty isolated to a small group of people that maybe want to do a certain thing.
And don't you feel like it's an opportunity to improve people's mental health because people long for community. We've lost that in many ways in society.
So hungry for it.
And when it's right there in front of you, it's kind of you may not have any other outlet to find it. And it doesn't require a lot of money to do. It's literally just saying, hey, we're getting together to do the Love is Blind. Or watch or whatever, or whatever.
This is where my daughter was last night. That's why I know that. Yeah.
But hey, whether it's a potluck or watching a game or something, excuse to get people together.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's just the decision of, hey, let's make sure that we're doing these events and prioritizing it, because it's easy not to do and for time to get away, from you. And all of a sudden it's been, we haven't had a resident event in, so long.
Right.
But man, when I read through reviews, like especially like, after we bought Solana, I remember reading reviews being like, where are the resident events? That was the one thing that I was always looking forward to. And they're always so appreciated. And then it's also an opportunity for the site teams to interact with the residents, not in an environment where, hey, business. You don't understand your bill, or, I've got a problem with a maintenance, service request or something like that.
Yeah. Pro tip out there: if you engage with your residents at those events, it's harder for them to belittle you in any other environment. Like if the last engagement with that person or the only engagement with that person is complaint, concern, or whatever, it's going to be easier for them to treat you a certain way. So pro tip, maybe just as many friendly social opportunities as you can have to engage, it actually can just increase employee satisfaction in a big way, because this person is less likely to come in and just lose their mind on you. Not a perfect system, but and again, helpful.
It smooths over interactions, but it also, I think, goes to increase retention rates, because all of a sudden it gives a sense of community and neighbors, and some people may not have any other reason to stay or to move, but if you have neighbors that you kind of enjoy, it might be that reason to stay.
Oh, definitely.
And to differentiate between, wherever they had been living and wherever might go.
Yeah.
So again, it's like, it doesn't require spending $100,000 on some new upgrade. It's like some of the simplest things. They just required, it's just a matter of, let's plan on doing this and make sure it happens.
Yeah.
But again, it's some of the simplest things that are easy to forget also.
Yeah.
So,
and it's up to the operator, I think, to be not just communicating it to asset managers and owners as like, well, we have to have parties. Like we know, or at least the reason that I want to do it is not let's have parties. It's satisfaction in the job. It's employee retention.
Yeah.
It's, it's the way they're going to treat us. It's obviously social content. Like there's just so much more to it than just like, I need money for parties. But I don't know if operators, really are articulate and researched about the why behind it, and honestly the even more crucial why today than even 5 years ago. Definitely more than 10 years ago. It's critical. People are on the edge.
Need to break it up, get people together.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's talk about leasing a little bit.
Okay.
So we've talked about this on the Great Report in the past, but Katrina's coming on. You're the best person to talk about.
Oh boy!
Because it's our portfolio. It's real life. Call it anecdotes, but also it's what we've experienced this last year. And honestly, our portfolio is doing much better, especially from like a rent growth and revenue standpoint compared to the nation. I mean, look at our average rent growth levels. It's well a bit beyond the averages. Not every site. Some sites we're trying to we're holding the line.
Yeah.
Others, we're seeing really big opportunities.
Oh, yeah, they're carrying the weight.
Yeah.
in
now,
some ways.
I'd say in many cases, the other side of that we talk about is there's been some expense growth. So it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
So you're getting a little bit of NOI growth, but not as much as we'd really like to see in some cases. But the revenue side and the demand generally it is there. But still, when we look at it, was still this leasing season has been a little bit surprising compared to previous examples. Jay Parsons, who puts out a lot of really good research, did a write-up and did an episode on his podcast, The Rent Roll, detailing this, and he just did a really good write-up, and so I shared that with you, and we're showing it right now, and then we've got a link to it on the Great Report newsletter. But, typically we see, leasing season start in like March, and it kind of goes through July, and then it tapers off, school starting again.
Yeah.
And we saw March was pretty strong.
Yeah, we had some hefty spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, spring has sprung.
I remember in like February, it's like everyone wants to move. Everyone has a March move-in date. Yeah. Everyone wants to move in March. And then March came and we had a lot of move-ins.
Yeah.
And then April was like pretty good, but then like June, it kind of just went quiet, which usually there's a continuing ramp up and can increase velocity through June. It's either June or July. Yeah. And then like a little bit in August. Yeah. But June, July,
we had
stopped. Yeah. Everyone stopped.
Yeah. And so, such a drastic change. Like if you really look at the portfolio-wide graph, obviously I'm visualizing it. That's why that's why I'm using my hand. But I mean, like
next time we'll pull up.
Yes, I know. But like healthy May, dead June. Yeah. July actually portfolio-wide, even though a couple of our properties, definitely saw it, up, back down.
Yeah, we had some outliers too.
We did. Yeah. If we're looking
Echo
at it,
popped up recently, which was great.
Yes, they did. Which very nice. That one is more predictable, like in theory, like it should, as it should, being, somewhat on that academic calendar year, I suppose. For school to start. But, we've been, sharp up and down and then, really down again. Now rent growth is not like that. Rent growth has been solid, better than these numbers, for sure. I actually wrote them down just before I came in because I wanted, but we're no less than, well, certainly no less than 5, but I mean, and even in August, like we didn't necessarily have the leasing volume, but we've got 7% rent growth for August starts. Yeah. So, we did some healthy pre-leasing at great rates for us. And we aren't alone. If I'm calling colleagues or texting my peers as I do, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? Yeah. And there's a honesty code between us because there's no reason for us to inflate or deflate anything. Yeah. Yeah. We've known each other in the industry for years and years and years. Whereas to your point earlier on the surveys, my leasing agent can call a leasing agent at so-and-so and they can say, yeah, we're in lease up, but we're pre-leased to 75% and, whatever. Well, that may be true. It also may be 120 days out. Yeah. Exactly. There's no qualifiers in there. Yeah. Or also having taught CALP for so many years, NALP, CALP, some people, even in my class, would say, well, my manager just tells me to say 95, no matter what.
Oh yeah. Also, oftentimes you can tell sometimes when someone has been coached, and when I hear 95, I'm like, maybe you are 95.
Yeah, maybe
it could be.
That's shocking because I can see how many units are available on apartments.com or wherever.
Exactly.
So
and it's like, are you pre-leased? Were you pre-leased? Were you at 95% at one point? And that's just what we're saying today.
Yeah.
But
So that can be hard, but at that. Not that misery loves company, but you do when you're trying to just dissect everything and go, is it us? Is it the market? Is where are we falling in this?
Your first thing, it's us. First, that's the first.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Yes.
What's happened? And then you reach out, colleagues. What do you see in your property? And then you start hearing the same things. And then, which I think is going to happen this season. Yeah. But then also when you start getting the reports, or the regional or the national reports, start to see the same things. And, typically markets are very, market to market, there can be a lot of, different dynamics. But then there are some of just these more macro trends. And so, and that's what we're kind of trying to figure out, what is, what is it? Is it supply? We've just delivered a ton of supply in just about every market. Some about the worst, but up in the Midwest too.
That's the worst when somebody builds something brand new and fancy right down the road and you're looking at it and you're like, wow, my rents are, I'm getting higher rents than what this new lease up is doing. But I've been on the lease up side, so I get it.
Yeah. Well, but that's the kind of the change now is there is so much pressure to get leased up and to get stabilized as soon as possible, that where in the past you might have seen some of those new deliveries try to kind of push the envelope. Like we're going to be way overhead. And it wasn't a big deal because they're like, hey, they're $200-$300 more than we are. Yeah. It's not, we've got a great value prop. Yeah. Not as much today. What do you do? What do we do when we see that new competition, come in, knowing that it's probably not going to be like that forever? We dealt with that down in Bloomington, but how do you kind of in the middle of it, when you look around facing stark competition, what do you do? What do you tell your teams? Yeah. What's the blocking, tackling?
I mean, I think because my experience is more on the new develop and the lease up side, I can teach them how to sell against that when they have a ready, willing, and able buyer in front of them. But we're not always getting all the ready, willing, and able buyers because, I mean, when you think about lease up budgets and what that looks like on the marketing side, which we, I don't want to say we play that game, but like we can look at something that we're purchasing and say, well, that marketing budget was to lease up, that was to fill the tank from empty. Where over here, like we don't have to spend that much on marketing because it's just, there's a sustainability there. So, the other piece of that too is that they almost have this feels unlimited. Yeah. Feels unlimited.
It seems like an unfair advantage because they've got, a budget that's 2-3x what we're spending. We're trying to, tighten the belt. Yes. They've already allocated, again, 3x what we were going to spend towards marketing.
And there's, the strategic part of the marketing is about like, people want it to look fancy. They don't care if it is fancy. Mm-hmm. They'll sacrifice for image in many, many, many ways. So it's like, what is my picture what's it gonna look like behind me? Does my kitchen have a tile backsplash? Do I have this? Do I have that? Where there's, another group of humans that would be more concerned with like, can I get to work? Can I turn left? Can I, what's the scenery look like? Are there mature trees? There's a whole demographic of people that wouldn't even know if that's a weed or a flower.
Yeah.
And they want it to look a certain way. It's status, it's eliteness, it's what are my pictures.
So do you see renters, there's probably a lot of different categories, but like, prospective residents that fall into those kind of two broad categories of the practical, again, like, how far away is from my work, what's the left turn?
Yeah.
Then you've got the ones that are just pure aesthetics.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. There's some that are like chase the flashy, shiny thing that's brand new. No one's ever lived here before. I mean, that's how you're supposed to sell new development anyway. Like almost like fear tactic. Like, well, I mean, they're 10 or 15 years old. Imagine how many people have lived here.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's just sales, and you have to be good at it, and you have to be smart, and you have to be able to execute it. So it's like if there is someone that's more practical, everyone should be a practical buyer.
Yeah.
You will make
first
poor decisions.
Get the practical part. Then
let's
it can look
be a
good.
practical buyer. And that then just means that we have to extract from them what that looks like, what that sounds like, where they go, what they like to do. And the art of that is, first of all, hard to teach quickly, if at all.
That's like reading. You basically have to read somebody and pick up on those little cues and then
do.
Shift.
And because we're all out here using, and I'm not saying it in a bad way or a spiteful way, but like we're all out here using AI tools. We're using, things that are supposed to sort of like warm them up. But really we are, a lot of those tools, they're not able to sell like that. They can't pick up on that yet. I haven't seen one yet.
Definitely doesn't leave you feeling very warm after interacting with a chatbot for a while.
No, the goal is to get the tour and get the appointment, because in theory we think that, if the AI can at least get the price, some of those details out of the way, let's narrow it down to a floor plan. Like, let's do all this part of the sales funnel and then get them out here, and then this is when the sales happens.
Yeah.
That can work if you've got a great sales team that knows how to sell against some of that new development and how that ultimately is working. But it's just, that's where like the AI tools, like we just can't say that they're doing everything and doing it well, because that's where the older, maybe the B class, especially if the A is not coming in as high as they should. Mm-hmm. Like that's where that can be really difficult, and we may never get the chance because they're like, oh no, this one's new, this one's fancy. I want to show everybody where I live and what it looks like. And like I'm over here like, okay, but what about disposable income? Like, do you want to save for a home someday? Like, what does that look like? How much can you put back? I had these conversations with a couple people down in Evansville. Yeah. Because the allure of new is no different than like, I'm at the mall and they put something on the mannequin because the fall clothes came out, and like now I want that, but like in all practicality, that sweater's in my closet.
Do you think that I say we as in like our general prospect, but also as a society, maybe have gotten a little bit more bougie over the last couple of years, but then specifically the renters who are coming in, younger generation, maybe some of them experience student housing. Are you seeing that they really want that that aesthetic more than anything.
Yes. You were supposed to live, I thought that in student housing, and this is before, so like I'd say before 2011, I really hadn't been in student properties other than where I went to school at Miami University. And like there was a decent apartment community there, but most of it was older. It's not huge, there's not like this major growth.
Yeah.
And so then I started working for For Rent, and Bloomington was my market. And I'd been there like twice to visit my sister. She got her master's there. And I'm walking into these new developments. I'm like, what are these kids living in? This is nicer than any home I'll ever have. And we're setting this, standard of living, or this benchmark of living that is just like unattainable, really on their dollar right when they get out. But it doesn't matter. They're used to it now. Yeah. They're used to it now, and would rather get a roommate, would rather be sort of like max budget and just have enough beer money, but not any real future money, no savings, no, like it's very just like YOLO, stay left.
Yeah.
But the student housing has set up, I mean, they've lured them in as they should. They're, per bed. So they're cranking rents. I mean, when I think about what you make off like per bed, now I know the expenses are different. I'm not crazy, but.
Oh, still though. I've been there's a couple new developments. I'm looking at the pro formas and I'm like, you're going to get what? And maybe they will. But it's insane.
It's insane. Very expensive. Having, and Finley signed her first lease for her junior year. She signed it in the spring of her freshman year.
Oh man!
So that's how competitive like we're talking.
Is that for a house?
So she got an apartment, and in Oxford you do want a house if you can get it. So she's in an apartment that is an eight people.
An 8. Wow.
4 bathrooms. Okay. Wow. So
So she had to find her like 8 other roommates 3 years in advance.
Sure did.
To sign a lease.
Sure did.
That's a different.
And they're all in their sorority, and they don't rush till spring. So basically, she knew these girls for like 3 weeks, and they're like, "Hey, you want to live together?" So that's just a recipe for success, of course. But like she, when I
there
really
won't be any issues between the 8 of them.
Great.
No.
But when I added it up, and when I looked at like just student specific like real estate, like I almost bought a house in Oxford.
Yeah, we were talking
I was
about
just like, it's time because it's crazy, but. I get that they can build it and they can get the finishes, they can get the rent, they can do the performas. Like the underwriting's probably, completely different per square foot because of what they're able to charge that individual human to live in this space alone. And then they just have this little bit of common space. Yeah. And so they can do everything new and flashy and fancy and beautiful. And then I do think they don't want to reduce their standard of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
they've
I
already
always thought
it.
that like going to college, you were going to live in kind of a
crap. You're supposed to live in something super crappy.
And then you graduate college, and I kind of graduated post great financial crisis, finished up college, and I was not living. I was just, what can we afford? Like, what can I live? And my thought of post college was you're just finding some place that you can afford and trying to figure it out. You're trying to start your career,
builds
and
character.
that was like part of life. That stage,
right?
But there's this, I don't know, and I have a lot of misconceptions with, Gen Z. When I had John Chapman in here, and I was talking, and then I started throwing some stereotypes, and
he's so different.
He's so different. He quickly corrected me, and I was like, okay, you're right. I shouldn't have just overgeneralized.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be, and it's probably something with, parenting over the last couple, decades of we don't want our kids to suffer at all.
Remove all barriers.
All barriers. And just we want to be comfortable and, safe space from here to there. And we want you to be in a safe, especially, like you have a daughter. I have daughters. You want your daughters to be in a safe environment. Yeah. But you also, they need to be exposed to some danger at some point.
Yeah, pay attention.
Yeah. Be aware.
We say stay alert, stay alive.
Yeah. Good.
Probably every other day, stay alert, stay alive.
But it's better than don't do it and go and just hide from life and
that's what makes me wonder too on the housing market. Like, do people, it was normal to buy some tiny house on a random street in town to build up equity, to make good decisions, the starter home, and then, whatever that looks like, whatever area you're in, moving to the country, having a little bit bigger lot, having a little bit bigger house, whatever that is, like if the starter home's not good enough for anyone's image? Is it that people are saying I can't buy a house, or is it that they're saying I won't buy this type of house?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of that.
I think that there's a definitely and terrified of the
a lot
work
of that is
it
disappearing.
takes.
There's not as much of that like how housing stock, but I think it's a lot of if I'm going to buy something, I want it to be nice and have all the aesthetics, and I also don't want. There's also not that many people who will want to go buy something that needs to be fixed up.
Oh, for sure.
People want it to be turnkey, ready to go, and you're going to pay a premium for that. And so if it's like, well, you can get that, but you're going to have to do all the work. People are like, I don't have time for
pass.
that. Yeah,
they just pass.
Exactly.
Which is probably also delaying some of that.
So we've talked a little bit about slow leasing season, it's supply. Do you think also, just to finish up this topic, there was tariffs, this like economic uncertainty that's like super kind of heady and macro.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of like studies that show that when it's an uncertain economic environment, people just don't want to make decisions and they want to stay put.
Yeah.
And we've seen retention rates on average be a little bit higher than previous years. How much of just the general economic uncertainty is getting people to just stay put, renew their lease, and so we're just not seeing that leasing velocity because people just don't want to move right now? Or do you think that's, I don't know.
I think some of it is like, is what they perceive is happening. Some of it is just what is actually happening. Like when we think about some of the utility costs that they've had, because, there's a pass through always when there's a growing community, like they need to make some choices and then that has to get passed down. So anytime, there's any kind of inflation that impacts them day to day on whatever goods and services they need, even down to like car repairs, like it's so hard to even get a vehicle in for a repair functionally and definitely not cosmetically, because the roads are just ridden with people who aren't paying attention at all. And so like there's like years of backup to even get your vehicles fixed. And that obviously
find
escalates.
Time to bring your vehicle in to do it.
Right. So as long as it's running, you're probably still using it, but whether that's better or not, so just like the actual cost, rising costs that they are experiencing, I think is keeping them in place as much as what they think may be coming, because if they believe it will be worse than it already is.
Do you think that if they go out and try to find an apartment, they're just expecting they're going to have to pay more?
Yeah, I do.
In some cases.
I do. And some communities don't understand why they may need to pay more for the same, apartment that they're in, like any kind of renewal increases,
but maybe the $50, $25 to $80, maybe $100 renewal may be cheaper in their mind than going and paying more per month at the newer community plus moving costs.
Yes, and often it is, plus just the pain of moving, plus just the anxiety of going to the office, trying to tour, trying to pick one. I think they have to be pretty dissatisfied and have some level of savings and means to make the jump to leave.
To have the choice.
To have the choice. But we are experiencing some communities with some, like Evansville specifically, like the electric bills. And I'm researching it on behalf of our residents. Like I want to help them understand, what the decisions were made, what things were passed, what rate increases were known, because not the average person doesn't necessarily do that, but we want to be that. We want to be that company that researches and helps them understand and looks at conservation efforts. But like that's cutting into their ability to pay rent or save or move on or, move up.
Well, I know you've mentioned this a lot, is that, often prospective residents aren't qualified based on like their actual full boat, what they're going to be paying a month. It's just on the rent.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Even when I'm looking at like the rent to income ratios, I'm just thinking like, okay, but you're only stating rent. What about other income? We don't ever talk about that like that's the effective rate, but it actually is. And depending on, communities with bulk Wi-Fi, valet trash, pest, I've seen parcels. I've seen now some cities are doing, facilities fees and amenities fees. When you really add all of that up, if they were already close, do they actually qualify? Is it actually smart, for anyone to spend 40% just in this one place?
Because evictions aren't cheap.
Oh gosh.
You're going to pay for it. It's no fun for anybody.
It really isn't. Yeah.
And put in, you could say that, the residents are putting themselves in that situation. And sometimes, they should understand exactly what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
But there's also that sometimes it's a disconnect of, they're seeing that marketed price, the $1,200 per unit, 15, 2,000, whatever per unit.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, can I afford that a month? Not the, extra $200 for utilities plus, another fee plus whatever else. And so all of a sudden, instead of $1,200, it is $1,450 or $1,600.
Yeah.
And you don't want people to put themselves in a bad financial situation, but you also can't be a financial advisor for every single prospect. Also.
No. Wish we could.
Wish we could.
Yeah, wish we could in some ways.
Yeah.
And especially in some, in some communities. But in some communities, people are stretching that far because they're trying to get the absolute nicest, what they believe is safest place for their family.
Yeah.
When it's that close, qualification wise, like they are trying so hard to get into one of our communities because they absolutely believe like that this is the nicest that I can afford. So they're maxing it out because it also, the product or location matches the nicest thing that they can afford, although albeit probably pretty tight. One, we've talked about it before, like one major event away from being close to not being able to pay.
Well, and just to that point, it's not just, you don't just see that at Class C or B properties. It's sometimes it's the Class A properties where someone is pushing to get into that more, kind of luxury apartment
for all kinds of reasons.
For all kinds of reasons, where it's like, the property across the street is still nice. Maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Maybe it's not as new.
Yeah.
But you're going to save money if you think about it. Save some money and then move up when you have a better income and do it comfortably. But again, can't make all the decisions for everybody and help everybody through everything.
No, but we should have some smart materials that, especially in like a market where, we know that we're under because we know our product is under, but we also know that we're competing sometimes with this one and this one that really are, we all know they're nicer. We all agree, you know what I mean? And also we agree that they've got the higher rents. Like what we probably don't articulate well. We're always trying to talk about how our product is just as good or our amenities are just as good. But what we really should be talking about is the gap and the freedom in the income side and what they keep in their pocket.
Yeah.
And saying it in a little bit different way. It's not new. It shouldn't be new for a really good salesperson. But like the twist is to say, well, do you understand that if you lease here versus here on average, you put $1,200 back in your pocket. And if you put it in Robinhood or you have a way.
Think about what you can do with that.
Yeah, like what can you do with that? That is somewhat of a financial literacy conversation or materials or, something that, could be, potentially provided to somebody. And if they may never actually do it, but maybe they would be like, man, no one's ever believed in me like that or talked to me like that.
Having just a little budgeting 101, little like one sheet, a little card. Just think about this. Yeah. Just think about a budget. You not telling you to put one together, but just think it through. Would just be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, like a worksheet. Hey, everybody, here's a worksheet.
Yeah.
If it's financial
trying to
literacy
figure it
month
out
here at whatever.
We want you to be able to afford the rent here. We want you to be able to pay.
Yeah.
We want it to not be a stressful situation also, because the last thing you want to see, which happens all the time when you manage a lot of properties, a lot of units, a lot of people, is you see people that are stretched financially because that one event does happen, and they are squeezed, and then then we're in a position of having empathy for that person, so we don't want anyone to go through a hard time financially, the amount of stress that causes someone. But we're also we're a for-profit business at the same time, and we've got a contract and a lease, and so we're in it's a tough spot to be in, wanting to help that help that individual, but there are limits, but education and materials and trying to kind of front load that information certainly could. And if you make an impact just on one or a couple people, it's certainly
which
better.
I think that we already have, but just
I think so.
In the spirit of knowing that they're looking to us as the landlord for more than I think we ever can realize, like socialization and help and assistance and counseling and the ear, whatever that all is. The smartest thing we could do is mimic what we plan to do for our employees as it relates to just like supporting the wholesale. We should really be looking at wholesale support for the residents as well. It would have to come back in some way, if nothing else than just a gesture of care.
does that excite you about multifamily and property management? If there's there's like that opportunity to do that, it's way easier. It's easy for us to say that than to actually implement it, because it requires time, really, more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, it probably is going to require some money also, but it's really I mean, it's the day in, day out of, you know, property management. There's so many things to focus on.
Yeah.
Them stepping back and what's this more holistic picture, and essentially saying, how do we provide more services, and really turning this into a community where, you know, people are, you know, built up and feel comfortable and want to stay. It's easy. It's hard to implement. Especially when there's, you know, can be short-term business plans, you know, property ownership changes.
Yeah. It's like a weekend project. It almost has to feel like a passion project that is outside of the scope of what you know is like your normal tasks, even though we do genuinely know that it would be impactful.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, no, there's no time for it, but it would be so impactful and it'd be so successful. To implement. Yeah.
I mean, we used to have one community one time had English as a second language courses in their clubhouse.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. And that was kind of a specific scenario because the person came to us and said, can I use this space? Because there were companies bringing people in from all over the world. And they oftentimes had, you know, spouses, and they wanted those kinds of services. And that felt so, I don't know, just it was like gratifying, and all we did was just provide the space. But if I really look back at all of that, like what that partnership looked like, what that human will remember about, you know, where it is that they learned, you know, English, and you know, just like the psyche behind it, and the you know, emotional tie maybe to the community in that way. We almost have to serve the mental health. You know, it's a topic that people don't want to talk about because they always picture. I think everybody pictures something that's, you know, like a major event, or it's a this or a that. It's not. It is though us just saying, like, how do we show with actions that we care? What does it look like? What can we be providing? Who can we bring in to speak? Like, we've got some incredible amenity spaces, some of which are basically full on event space at this point. And like that community is probably the one that would benefit the most from a monthly seminar. That supports people. And then, of course, my food truck, my therapy truck that I would like to show
up. Your therapy truck. Yeah.
I keep asking.
I think it's a great idea.
Someone's going to catch on to that.
Somebody, there's a therapist out there who is going to be looking for doing something.
Yeah, like I will invest in the food truck.
Explain the concept.
And it really comes from employees. Because, you know, I think a lot of time, I think we all have things at home that we bring to work. And then I hate the thought of somebody bringing work, you know, to their home and to their families, and, you know, just trying to sort of get some homeostasis there. And the reality behind any human out there actually reaching out for help or assistance or an ear, you know, everybody needs someone to say things to, whether that's work or home. So I would like to have a mobile therapy van, very much like a food truck, that shows up, that's, you know, beautifully decorated and whatever it's supposed to look like in there, to sort of like generate this like safe space. But I want to have it come to the communities. Really wanted it for the employees mostly.
Yeah, first employees.
Then
everybody else, come on, get in line.
And we pay for the service, you know, for the employees. Again, this is the projection here. Pay for the service. The van is there. You get an hour. We pay for your hour. You can sit in there on your phone if you want, or you can talk to a human. You can ask for help. You can say, hey, I've got this going on with my sister. I haven't talked to her. You know, whatever. I don't even.
Yeah, just talk it out.
Get it out and feel what that feels like, you know, on the way out. And it not, I don't know. It's a work in progress. It's going to happen at some
Bottom line,
point.
it's good to talk to people. Therapy is a good thing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. You know, the strongest, most stable people have therapists, and you utilize therapists.
Yeah.
It's a universal thing. And there's society today is way too complicated. You know, you have to be able to make sense of it and have that outlet of a little bit, or of a sounding board outside of, you know, your spouse or your best friend. You know, something that's a little bit more impartial at some point.
Ask any property manager or leasing agent; they will tell you that sometimes what we get has nothing to do with us. Like, there's someone just losing their mind on us, just angry and mean, like the meanness, and like they'll walk out, and I think I'm pretty good at detaching, but it's not easy all the time, but where I'm just like, that wasn't about me.
Yeah.
That wasn't about carpet.
Yeah.
That could have been fueled, for all we know, just years and years of no one listening to them.
Yeah.
And here we are, we have to hear, we're not a sitting duck in that way, but like we're here, we're supposed to listen, like we're supposed to do those things. But I'm just like, man, we gotta help people out to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not sinister, it's not exploitative. It's like it's like genuine care.
Yeah.
But using multifamily and using the fact that we offer homes, like there's nothing more personal than someone's home.
Yeah.
And their businesses and their assets, call them their deals.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, they're all the same.
They are all those things.
They're
and
all those.
More.
They're all those
They are
things.
They are not those things.
Yeah.
They are those things.
But somebody brought their first child home to that one, and
Yeah.
someone else, this is where they went after they got divorced, and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
and it doesn't. I think where people miss is that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be all of those things, and you can do all those things well. And I think that if you do all those, if you do the individual pieces well, they do contribute to the community and the individuals. If they're in a better headspace, if they're happier. Maybe that they will renew. You're not going to have as many
Maybe they'll
issues.
stay.
You're going to have less, employee turnover because you're not getting yelled at as much. So you're going to be able to get better, team members that are going to be happier. It means residents are going to be happier, which means occupancy goes up, which means maybe you can move rents a little bit. Residents are happy to pay a little bit more in rent because it's such a great community.
Yeah.
There's obviously limits, but and then the deal does better. Investors are happy. It's a better, improved asset. It's a win-win. The brokers are happy, and but it can often gets lost, in the spreadsheet, and because all of that gets removed and it turns into rent growth and expense growth and insurance and a cap rate and which that's critical to quantify and understand that part too, but you're missing a whole part of the equation of where the actual rubber meets the road and people live every single day and breathe. Okay, taking a lot of your time, you got a lot of stuff going on, but one last thing, we're gonna skip over some of the other topics. AI. We talk about AI way too much. Everyone's talking about AI. And so this title of this section was, what's hype? What's the hype and what works? So I'm getting bombarded by, software as a service, SaaS advertisements.
Yeah, same.
All the time saying they're going to solve all these problems. The alternative title for this is, for $3.50 a unit, I'm going to sell you an AI chatbot that's going to lower your insurance and property taxes. All these promises, all these supposed solutions. And I'm just getting more skeptical as the days go on. Not that AI can't solve a lot of problems, because you use it a lot. I use it a lot.
Every day.
We're implementing it in different parts of our business. What's the hype and just what's BS not worth paying attention to? What are you skeptical of, and what are you really excited about that you see this working?
I'm skeptical, especially in the communication where they use big word, operational efficiency, and they've said nothing about which part of my business or how, or is it even really truly AI? Do they even understand if it's truly AI?
Yeah.
Because I also think there's a lot of companies out there that are employing these call center type cold call people that are just supposed to schedule the appointment. And let me tell you, I feel sorry for those people when I pick up the phone. And sometimes I do, I don't know every person that's calling my phone necessarily. And also somehow my cell phone number is on some lists, which is not fun or ideal, but also I've gotten more of these low level cold calls where this person can answer almost nothing.
They're trying to get you to.
They're just putting out whatever words are on their screen. Words. This is AI. This is an AI product. This
are
is
you interested in an AI
whatever.
product? Can I forward you?
Yeah. Are you using anything? And then I'm like, well, tell me about it. You get 10 minutes, and I tell them that I'm honest about it. I say, you got 10 minutes. You got an SVP. Let's go. It's your day.
Yeah. Can I transfer you? Is that what you get most of the time?
Yes, I get. Well, let me have my sales director call you, and I'm like, why didn't the sales director call you and call me in the first place? And there was one a couple.
We didn't think you'd pick up.
Well, maybe that is the case, and I know that I'm particularly candid. I guess. And so, but you got my attention. Congratulations. Let's use it. Let's make this really worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then they'll, just pass on feedback and, pass, comments up or whatever. But when they use the phrasing AI and they can't describe it at all, even when it's an actual salesperson, they fumble over their words. And I'm like, well, help me understand what information is coming in and what information is coming out that is not human, whatever the definition of AI is that people are using. And oftentimes they can't articulate that. I think there's so many places AI should be that it isn't, or rather those companies aren't loud in their marketing or in their, cold calling.
Yeah. Maybe they don't need to because they're just growing organically.
Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, like we talk about all the time, well, we wish we had this, we wish we had that, we want that, like, let's go find a developer. I say it maybe every single day. Yeah. I don't think there's anything revolutionary about AI and leasing at this point. So it feels very baseline.
Scheduling, answering questions, availability. Yeah. And they're not even all. And a lot of that's been around for in one iteration or the other for a long time, way before ChatGPT was a thing. Yeah. We've had chatbots, just LLMs made the chatbots a little smarter, but it seems like even some of them aren't that smart because they're limited to what they can respond.
One so fast, and I'm not always trying. Sometimes I'm not trying, and I'm like, well, okay, I guess I didn't get this.
So what's working? What are you doing? Day in, every single day that you're using with a lot of success. I know a lot of your team is using different tools, and then we've got little pieces in our through our tech stack. Also, like where are you seeing successes and gains right now?
The obvious answer is ChatGPT, just in terms of efficiency, writing, even just, I have conversations with my own, just helping me work through some things to get to a final product just really, really quickly. And that's more something written often. But I've asked it to do utility analysis for me. I've asked it to do, please use the same consumption from 2023 to 2025 and tell me what the billing rate would be based on this. Some of those things that I'm not sure everybody uses it for, but definitely I'm using it. One time I wrote a guide on water heater troubleshooting, like 6 different things that could be going wrong, and then asked it, what would be the symptoms? How could I discern it? And I think that's the hardest part is like, everyone has access. Like, there's nobody in our organization that doesn't have some access. I mean, we pushed, some, down to their phones, but the adoption rate, at some positions is super low.
To me, that seems like the success is not necessarily, it's like get the one software, the one chatbot that's going to connect everything and do your job for you. But it's more, can you learn to use the tools of AI to be more efficient and get more output yourself? Yeah. And that's where everyone is, who I see being successful using it.
Yeah, HI plus AI. Not AI in lieu of, because there's an element, but it is just like how fast can I be? We've seen, so I think the leasing ones are pretty successful, at least if your goal and objective is, just some basic sort of just like, cold call type information, this, and this, or for the consumer that doesn't want to take the time on the website. Like, they would just prefer someone to answer the questions for them or something to answer the questions so they don't have to go to the menu, you know. But, another place I think it was successful is in the translation tools.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're using, video, and many operators use it. It's not like we're independent in that way, but to have these, vocal announcements and then to translate it into multiple languages, that's just... I don't think what could be a more warm and welcoming way to say you belong. You're,
we've thought about you. We know that you speak a certain,
I speak Mandarin. Turns out. Turns out.
Well, we got a lot of folks speaking Haitian Creole, and I don't speak Haitian, Creole, and but we can get a chatbot that we can get close.
Yeah, we can. And so there are some that aren't, that are translation tools that's more just like the text, but the ones in the video are extracting
the audio and
my tone of my voice even, and then translating it. And I think that's just a fantastic use. That particular platform I see in the future, hopefully, being able to come in, take a video, the model have learned what it should look like and can compare, a unit to, this is the benchmark, this is the baseline, and then identify all the differences. Almost like the two pictures in the magazines and Highlights magazine. I'm really old, where it was like, mark the differences. Like I wanted
we do that about every week with my kids.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah.
So it's still happening. So I wanted to learn what the unit should look like, and then I want to be able to just go in, grab up, down, left, right, and then it extract the differences.
Yeah.
It's never going to pull a malfunction out. Like it's never going to notice that it's not going to know a dishwasher's not draining, right? Like I know that there's it, and that's where it's HI and AI. Like it's not going to be 100%.
It's a tool. The calculator's not going to do all the work for you. The spread, the Excel doesn't make the model. You make the model using Excel, and you type it in.
Yeah.
And so it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And that's where I think. My gut is there's going to be a lot of poor in mid-quality everything over the next couple of years, because it's just like AI, just like kind of output, AI in, AI out. Yeah. But then there's also you're already seeing it today, some incredible, like the AI art is some people are doing things that you can't do otherwise, and they're not just AI makes something cool and outputs some art. There's actual effort that's going into it that's fascinating, and so there's going to jobs that are going to probably maybe not be there, but there's all become these new opportunities doing all these new things. It's just fascinating. But I was trying to make a reservation this weekend, and I was on Google, and the restaurant wasn't on like open table or whatever, and Google was asking, it was like, do you want me to call the restaurant for you and make the reservation? And I didn't know how I was like, I think I do. I was like, but I almost felt like rude. Like I was going to be rude. I was like, I don't know if I want the AI to like represent me right now at the restaurant. So I'm gonna have to go speak to the hostess, and she was like, "Did your AI like come in and call?" I just didn't know how I felt about it. Maybe that'll be super normal. No, I didn't. Oh. I was just like, it was early enough. I was like, I think we can go get a table.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know how I felt about it.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was. I was like, this is great, and I do love finding all these new little AI features that just kind of get dropped in. Now, like Microsoft is trying to force Copilot down my throat right now. Same. Which I'm like, maybe it's I don't know. I kind of wrote Copilot off early, and now I need to get back into it.
Yeah, my tests haven't. I mean, I've gone right back to my comfort zone.
Same, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to also branch out in ChatGPT for some things, but then some of the other models for other. Because they're getting more, I guess, specialized. In every iteration is a little bit different, but like Perplexity, for a lot of just like hard like data like research, or was it I think as Anthropic for coding. Right. Like I'm not doing a lot of coding myself, but it's it's a fun journey to be on. We'll see how it shapes out.
It's also working. For our like policies and procedures, that the vendor that we use for that has. Just a little pop-up that if somebody had it on their screen and they said, what is our, policy, or is this a paid holiday? It extracts the handbook and then also extracts just normal policies and procedures, answers the question from the language in the doc, and then also references the doc and then any supplemental tools in there. So, either I need to start to just actually write out more scenarios and more what ifs and more this is how we do this, or explaining the difference between like defaulting on a lease as a skip, or like just some of those more like vocabulary, like definition things that leasing associates aren't ready to answer. If it were built into some AI that we felt really comfortable about that wouldn't hallucinate, then, we could do that. But also it seems like we could have something on the inside that is like curated responses. Yeah. That's probably not truly learning or AI. It's probably more keywords and responses.
Or just something that was just more focused. And I've read some about, some of these like smaller models now that it's like can't do everything, but it does this niche very, very well. And it excels at that. Yeah. But it can excel at that because it's not attempting to do a million other things. It can also create images and video and do math. But if it's just policy, this information. Yeah. But then we can also ask it, obviously, what policies are, what are we missing? What do we not think of? And
we need a Cat GPT. Because my nickname is Cat, Cat GPT instead of Chat GPT. I don't know.
trademark.
That sounded really ostentatious. That's not intended to be that way, but
No, I like it. Okay, last thing. So then we got to run. I've got to work. We've got some work.
We've got some work to do. Yeah.
What's your favorite? What do you love most about Flats at Stones Crossing, our latest multifamily investment opportunity?
Everything. Well, I'll say this is selfish, but it's my comfort zone product-wise.
Yeah.
Right out of development, post-stabilization, very exciting. That's a very exciting time.
Yeah.
The location. Like I love when there's dirt around me, and I know that sounds wild, maybe, but just the process behind, what's coming in here, what's coming in there. You just feel very part of something, and residents feel very part of something new. Like they'll come in and they'll be like, did you hear that we're getting this restaurant?
Yeah.
Or, did you know that we're going to be able to walk right over there to that bar? Or, whatever ultimately that looks like. So I think there's an allure of being like the first aunt at the picnic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So the geography, proximity to retail, the just the newness of it, because it is still like that. Like there's dirt around us, but that's exciting to me. And also just, for deliveries, like there's nothing that can't get delivered there. So for us, and we were talking about DoorDash earlier today, like just a convenience factor. Target, like a super Target is never wrong. Like there are people that will make a decision based on like a Costco or a super Target.
Yeah. So, there's an Meyer going in, down the road.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would definitely say the geography, but more specifically proximity. And, at first when I looked at it on a map, I was like, oh, it's, the highways or whatever.
It's kind of far from the 69 and 65.
But I have gone both ways at this point. Yeah. I've come off of 69, 37 from the south, and I've definitely come from the north at 65 and over. Mm-hmm. And other than the school zone, it feels fast.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that slow of a drive. And then you've got 135 that's right there also with all the retail. You can go right up the center. If you want to.
So actually, I feel like it's kind of like this, it's like a sweet spot to all of it,
Yeah.
So, location, product, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It feels like home. I kind of want to live there, actually.
I know. I know what you mean. It's awesome. Well, if you want to learn what Katrina's talking about, why we're so excited about Flats at Stones Crossing, it's the latest deal that we're going to be buying here in the next couple weeks. Only have a few spots left, but hop on over to graycapitalllc.com to learn more if you're an accredited investor. It's really exciting. Or just you can make sure you're subscribed to the Gray Capital YouTube channel, and then you can follow along because we post all kinds of content, due diligence videos. We just did a webinar a couple days ago, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to follow along, just learn about the process, the way we look at deals, what it takes to go and buy a large institutional size multifamily asset, make sure you're following along every step of the way. Yeah. Katrina, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is a great crossover episode. Complex. We got through news articles. We got through operational. Got to come back on sooner than, what was it, a year or so ago last time you were on.
It's been a minute, but that's okay.
But it's good.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Katrina. Thanks for watching, everybody.